Hong has a system which makes his learning speed absurd. It takes him 1 second to learn C-rank martial arts, 2 seconds for master, 3 seconds for perfect SSS rank techniques. A spar was going on between 2 students. One punch landed hard, and the one on the receiving end sucked in a breath, complaining that it hurt like hell. He laughed it off, saying Hong's Vajra fist had clearly improved again, and wondered out loud if he'd already stepped into the micro level. Hong stayed calm and said he'd only broken through to micro level 2 days ago. In this world, martial arts were divided into ranks: basic, proficient, micro level, mastered, and perfect. Reaching micro level already put someone ahead of most peers. The other student couldn't help admiring him, saying that just based on Vajra fist alone, no one else in their class could compare. He asked if Hong was done resting so they could continue practicing. But the pain from that single punch was still lingering, and he had no intention of taking another hit. Calling Hong a cultivation maniac, he waved him off and said he was heading home to eat. Before leaving, he politely bade Teacher Lee goodbye. Teacher Lee reminded him to straighten his clothes before going. Then he turned to Hong and finally caught him, asking why he still hadn't paid the 30,000 registration fee for the martial arts department. Applications were closing next month. Hong hesitated and asked if he could be given a few more days. Teacher Lee sighed, saying he understood the family situation, but rules were rules and there was nothing he could do. After everyone else left, Hong stayed behind, continuing to practice alone. No matter how many times he repeated his forms, one thought kept circling in his mind: the 30,000 registration fee. His memories drifted back. When he was 3, his parents had died during a ferocious beast disaster. Since then, he'd lived with his uncle and aunt. After discovering his talent for martial arts, they had done everything they could to support his training. In an era where ferocious beasts roamed freely, martial artists earned good money. He had trained to give them a better life, yet now it felt like he was only making things harder for them. Later, in a quiet corner, he returned to the cramped, worn-down place he called home. He asked softly whether the rent was almost due and how much they were still short. His uncle's voice came first, saying the rent could wait and that little Hong's registration fee should be paid first. His aunt followed, saying that with such talent, Hong was sure to succeed one day and they couldn't afford to hold him back. Then she added, almost casually, that she would stop taking her medicine. It wasn't curing her anyway, and it would save money. His uncle immediately objected, telling her he'd just take on another job instead. She should stay home, rest properly, and focus on her health. Everything else, he said, would work out. Hearing all of this from the shadows, Hong felt a tight ache in his chest, and sadness quietly washed over him. He couldn't help feeling that this was a stupid, messed up world. It had twisted his life into something he could barely recognize. Everywhere he looked, people were greedy. If someone simply wanted to register for something they were talented at, they still had to pay money for it, money he had no talent for earning. If he really had been good at making money, he probably wouldn't have had talent for martial arts at all. The more he thought about it, the crazier the world felt. Pushing those thoughts aside, he opened the door and called out that he was back. His aunt, who treated him like her own son, immediately fussed over him, asking why he'd practiced so late again and telling him he must be exhausted. Hong tried to take over the chores, telling her he'd handle it, but she waved him off, saying it was nothing and that he should go rest, so he wouldn't be tired the next day. His uncle backed her up, telling him to listen and go rest quickly. Hong returned to his room, but sleep refused to come. He lay there, wide awake, his thoughts running in circles. His uncle and aunt had already sacrificed so much for him. He couldn't keep letting that happen. This time, he would solve his own problem. For a martial artist to earn tens of thousands in just a few days, there was only one place that came to mind. The very next day, a loud announcement echoed through the streets. Audience friends were welcomed to the Martial Apprentice Arena Challenge, where only victory or defeat mattered, regardless of life or death. It was the underground martial arena. The announcer's voice rose as he introduced the ring defender for the day, someone called Mr. Minotaur. If he could win 4 matches in a row, he'd walk away with 60,000 in prize money. If not, he'd get nothing. The crowd was told to watch closely. The audience immediately erupted in whispers. No one recognized him. Some guessed he was a rookie. Others scoffed, saying a newcomer jumping straight into the arena challenge was basically courting death. Off to the side, the announcer leaned over and told the kid to show some passion and heat up the atmosphere. Minotaur looked confused and asked how he was supposed to do that. The announcer sighed and told him to provoke the crowd, curse a little. This was exactly why rookies were such a headache. Realization dawned on Minotaur. Letting out a roar, he shouted that below the level of a martial artist, he was invincible invincible, calling on all weaklings to come and fight him. The crowd exploded at once. Some cursed him for being absurdly arrogant, while others laughed and praised the guts. The atmosphere instantly boiled over. Someone in the crowd sneered that this guy wouldn't even know how he died later. That only lit the fuse. Cheers erupted from every direction. Some people shouted that it was good, others yelled for blood, and a few just cursed at the so-called Minotaur at the top of their lungs. With the atmosphere boiling over, the announcer declared that the match had officially begun. Behind the Minotaur mask, Su Hong stayed calm. He could clearly feel the heavy killing intent unique to the underground arena. Still, this was the fastest way to gather enough tuition money. As long as he could win a few rounds with his Vajra fist, it would be worth it. His first opponent stepped forward, calling him an arrogant brat and saying he'd play with him a little. Su Hong barely paid attention, his eyes calmly sizing the man up. The opponent's momentum was strong, but his footing was unstable. From the look of it, winning wouldn't be difficult. Seeing him space out, the opponent cursed and charged straight in with a punch. Su Hong sidestepped it cleanly, then casually swung his other hand. The strike landed square on the man's jaw, sending him flying straight back to where he'd come from. Next, the announcer instantly lost her composure. She was already starting to love this masked fighter, even joking to herself that she might want to ask him out someday. Laughing into the mic, she shouted that Minotaur had taken his first win. The crowd exploded with excited shouts and cheers. A second challenger stepped up, scoffing that the last one had just been unlucky, but things would be different this time. Su Hong simply replied with a casual please, while calmly judging his opponent. Based on his build, the guy's strength should be decent, perfect for testing how powerful his Vajra fist really was. The man shouted and leapt in with a heavy punch. Su Hong met it head-on. With one Vajra fist strike, he shattered the incoming force. The opponent cried out in shock at the sheer power behind it. Su Hong could already tell the difference. Strong, but still weaker than him. After tanking a single counterattack, he'd relied too much on his upper body, leaving his waist wide open. Su Hong followed up with a brutal kick, and the man was sent flying off the stage just like the first. The arena went wild. Some people cursed in disbelief, others shouted that he was insanely strong. Next, the announcer excitedly declared that Minotaur had achieved 2 consecutive wins. The cheers grew even louder, almost deafening. In a quieter corner, a few well-dressed spectators watched with sharp eyes. One of them muttered that the kid wasn't even a quasi-martial artist, yet his strength far surpassed the average. There was no doubt about it, this one was unusual. The announcer's voice rang out again, declaring Minotaur's 3rd consecutive win. In the viewing area, one of the men watching commented that the kid was better than the worst but nowhere near the best. Someone like that, he said, was perfect material for match fixing. From behind him, a masked young man spoke up, saying he'd go handle it. The older man reminded him not to reveal the fact that he had already broken through to martial artist level. After racking up so many wins, Su Hong felt increasingly confident. Ordinary martial apprentices were no longer much of a challenge to him. With his Vajra fist at the micro level, winning one more match would earn him the full 60,000 prize money. Just then, the crowd suddenly stirred. People started shouting that White Fox was actually stepping into the ring. The moment the masked fighter appeared, the arena erupted. Some exclaimed that White Fox was a quasi-martial artist. Others protested that a quasi-martial artist fighting a martial apprentice was basically cheating. Su Hong's heart sank slightly. A quasi-martial artist, this match was going to be troublesome. Still, backing down wasn't an option. He couldn't afford to lose now. White Fox stopped in front of him and studied him calmly before speaking, telling him not to be afraid. He even claimed he knew how to hold back. The announcer's voice cut in again, declaring the final match of the arena challenge and shouting for the fight to begin. Both fighters exploded forward at full speed. Su Hong immediately sensed the gap in their realms. His cultivation was lower, so he had no choice but to go all out with his opening move. His punch blasted forward, sending visible shockwaves rippling through the air. The collision shook the ring as both sides displayed frightening power. The instant their fists met, Su Hong's heart skipped. This power, something was wrong. His opponent wasn't a quasi-martial artist at all. He was a true martial artist who had deliberately suppressed his vitality. A surge of tension washed over Su Hong. He'd never expected a monster like this to appear out of nowhere. White Fox took a sharp breath and launched another attack, unleashing the Thunder Rush Fist. One strike followed another in rapid succession, each blow heavier than the last. Under the relentless assault, Su Hong was forced back, pain spreading through his body. So this was the strength of a real martial martial artist. The crowd was stunned. Someone recognized the technique, shouting that it was the 3 Echo Thunder Rush Fist. No one had expected to see such a move here, and the surprise alone was worth the price of admission. Others shook their heads, saying the Minotaur was finished. To them, the outcome was already obvious. Yet White Fox showed no intention of stopping, his attacks continuing one after another, pressing the advantage without mercy. After a while, White Fox clearly started getting bored. He told Minotaur that only defending was pointless and urged him to fight back, saying he wanted to see what kind of strength he really had. For now, Minotaur could do nothing but block. Even through his defenses, the punches were tearing into him, pain spreading with every impact. If this kept up, he knew he would lose for sure. He needed a chance to counterattack, but White Fox's strikes were too fast and too relentless, leaving no openings at all. Then White Fox found one himself. Punch shot straight toward Minotaur's jaw. The impact sent him flying, and he crashed hard onto the ground. Lying there, his vision blurred as his consciousness began to fade. Before he could recover, White Fox stepped up and spoke calmly. He told him that he wouldn't get a single coin of the prize money from this match, but his teacher was willing to invite him in. If Minotaur agreed to fix matches for them in the future, they would pay him the equivalent of this match's prize money. Even with White Fox's foot pressing down on his face, Minotaur refused without hesitation. He said he would never do something so shameless. White Fox was briefly taken aback. He hadn't expected such a firm rejection. Regaining his composure, he warned him to think carefully, saying that refusing them came with a price he couldn't afford. Minotaur shot back, asking whether people who did things like this really deserved to call themselves martial artists. That was enough. White Fox said there was nothing left to discuss. As he turned to leave, he coldly added that since Minotaur wouldn't cooperate, he had no choice but to cripple him, so he could only dream about being a martial artist in the future. As White Fox moved to strike his leg, those words echoed in Minotaur's mind, sharp and piercing: become a martial artist. A surge of instinct kicked in. He twisted away at the last moment, narrowly avoiding the blow. He couldn't afford to be crippled. Forcing himself back up, Minotaur re-entered the fight. White Fox stared in surprise as Minotaur steadied himself, eyes burning. He couldn't fall here. Not here. Something snapped inside him, and a second wind surged through his battered body. White Fox couldn't hide his shock. He'd clearly landed a thunder rush fist earlier, yet somehow this guy was still standing. Yet in his heart, Su Hong remained painfully clear-headed. He wanted to become a martial artist. He couldn't allow the sacrifices his uncle and aunt had made over all these years to be wasted. He wanted to give them a good life. But did that really mean he had to abandon everything a martial artist was supposed to stand for? The answer came almost instantly. No, that kind of future was something he would never accept. At that very moment, something strange happened. A translucent status window suddenly appeared right in front of his eyes. Cold, emotionless words floated on it, asking what he was willing to sacrifice for his future and for his faith. Su Hong didn't hesitate. His eyes burned with fierce resolve as he answered, without the slightest doubt, that he was willing to give up everything. The notification asked again whether he was truly willing to pay the price. Minotaur answered the same way as before, everything. The moment the word left his mouth, something inside him began to change. His shadow on the ground twisted and stretched, slowly turning into the outline of a terrifying monster. Su Hong was stunned. He had no idea where this place was, and the shadow looming behind him belonged to some massive, unknown being. Before he could ask anything, that existence spoke, saying it would give him this chance. An unfamiliar aura wrapped around Su Hong, and another translucent status window appeared in front of him, listing his information in detail. Name: Su Hong. Vitality: 85. Spirit: 23. Physique: mortal body. Mission: Way of the Arena. Martial skills: Vajra Fist, micro level 7%. Floating Light Palm, proficient 35%. Void Step, proficient 56%. Martial value 0. Su Hong stared at it in disbelief. It really did look like it was displaying all of his attributes. On a whim, he reached out and touched the mission section, half wondering if it worked like a touchscreen. The moment he did, a new notification popped up. Random mission: Way of the Arena. Mission description: the road to becoming a powerhouse is full of thorns. Player, please polish your martial arts here and deal with White Fox waiting in the outside world. Objectives: hone your martial arts, raise Vajra Fist to the mastered level, and raise Floating Light Palm and Void Step to the micro level. Mission reward: Beginner's Guide. Current progress, Vajra Fist, micro level. Note, completing this mission will unlock the Beginner's Guide. Beginner's Guide? Before he could think further, a fist suddenly shot straight toward his face. Su Hong instinctively ducked. When he looked up, he froze. Standing in front of him was someone who looked exactly like him. The clone moved with perfect form, using Vajra Fist with a level of subtlety that far surpassed his own. Every movement was standard and precise, like something straight out of a textbook. With such a flawless example right in front of him, there was no way he could let the opportunity slip. As he exchanged blows with the clone, a realization struck him. This wasn't just a fight, it was a demonstration. Midway through the exchange, he noticed something else. His Vajra Fist proficiency had jumped. It had been 7% before, but now it had already reached 10. The improvement was shockingly fast. So this was it. This place allowed him to rapidly upgrade his martial skills. He kept fighting, learning, and adjusting with every clash. His proficiency climbed higher and higher, until eventually it hit 100%. His floating light palm reached full mastery, and with a single strike, he sent the clone flying away. His void step followed, also reaching full proficiency. Even Vajra Fist was perfected. Exhaustion finally caught up to him. Breathing heavily, Su Hong straightened up and gave a sincere nod. Thanks a lot. A notification rang out, congratulating the player on completing the mission way of the arena. The rewards had already been issued, and the system asked whether he agreed to return to reality. Su Hong didn't hesitate and chose yes. In the next instant, he was back in the arena, once again wearing the Minotaur mask, standing opposite White Fox. White Fox charged in immediately, sneering that Minotaur was still pretending to be mysterious, and unleashed another round of thunderous fist. Just like before, the blows were fast and fierce, carrying terrifying power. But this time was different. Minotaur calmly remarked that it was too slow. He slipped past every strike with ease, his movements light and precise. Before White Fox could react, a fist slammed straight into his face. The impact shattered the mask, and White Fox crashed to the ground. The entire arena froze. The crowd stared in disbelief, mouths hanging open. Minotaur stood tall in the ring while White Fox lay motionless at his feet. Minotaur calmly asked when he would receive the prize money, since he had won the fourth match. The announcer was clearly stunned, fumbling for words before the system announcement echoed through the arena. Minotaur was officially declared the winner, having successfully defended the ring and claimed the grand prize of 60,000. In the audience, the teacher's expression darkened. Vajra Fist at the mastered level. How could a mere martial apprentice possibly achieve that? Even most true martial artists couldn't reach such a level. Realizing something was wrong, he quietly ordered his people to follow Minotaur and investigate his true identity. They immediately acknowledged the command. After leaving the arena, Su Hong quickly sensed he was being followed. The moment they closed in, he burst into motion, his speed exploding as he vanished from their sight. The pursuers stopped in confusion, unable to figure out where he had gone, but they knew they couldn't give up. The boss wanted answers. Hidden safely, Su Hong sneered inwardly at their attempt to track him. An hour later, he had already returned home. When his aunt and uncle saw the large pile of money he brought back, they were completely stunned. His uncle half-jokingly asked whether he'd gone and robbed a bank, wondering where all that money had come from. Su Hong casually explained that he'd been working as a sparring partner at a dojo. The dojo master had taken a liking to his talent and decided to sponsor his martial arts studies. The uncle couldn't help asking if this was really the same dojo Su Hong had complained about before, the one that was famously stingy. Su Hong just looked at them and asked whether they still didn't trust him. Faced with his serious expression, both of them broke into smiles. The uncle laughed and said that was true. Little Hong would never lie to them. The aunt nodded along, saying their little Hong really did have a bright future ahead. The two of them were so happy they didn't even know how to express it properly. Later that night, Su Hong climbed up to the roof by himself. Sitting there under the quiet sky, he looked up at the bright, beautiful moon. It was one of those moments where a boy slowly turned into a man. He mentally went over everything. The martial arts exam registration fee was taken care of. The rent was settled. Even his aunt's medical expenses were no longer an urgent worry. Thinking about it all, he couldn't help but laugh in relief. Calling up the system interface, he admitted to himself that being able to turn such danger into safety this time was entirely thanks to this mysterious system. Looking closer, he noticed that aside from his martial skill levels, his other stats hadn't changed much. His gaze lingered on one thing in particular: martial value. So this was what it was used for. A new notification appeared, stating that he had defeated a higher-level opponent and gained 57 martial value points. Martial value could be used to increase vitality and martial skills, but it warned him to use it carefully. Su-hong decided to try it right away. The moment he added points to his vitality, a scorching surge of energy exploded inside his body, like flames roaring through his veins. He quickly checked the numbers. His vitality had reached 90. That was already the level of a quasi-martial artist. Without hesitation, he chose to pour all the remaining martial value into vitality. The number kept climbing, and with every increase, his physical strength grew more obvious. His body felt lighter, stronger, and far more alive than before. Under the moonlight, Su-hong clenched his fists, feeling the changes settle in. This was only the beginning. After calming down a bit, Su-hong muttered to himself that it wasn't just his physical strength that had improved. Even the wounds covering his body were almost completely healed, and his entire body felt brimming with endless power. With energy to spare, he felt an urge to properly test his current strength. He leapt across the rooftops, moving lightly, and soon thought of a good place to go. The school's drill ground had a combat power tester. That would do. Not long after, he arrived at Star City No. 1 High School's outdoor drill ground. The place was quiet, and a lone Tier 1 combat power tester sat there in the darkness. Gathering his blazing vitality, Su-hong rolled his shoulders and decided to hold back, planning to use only 70% of his strength. When his fist struck the machine, the impact rang out sharply. For a split second, his heart jumped at how heavy the punch felt. Then he realized something was wrong. The tester sparked and went dead. He stared at it, stunned, and immediately started worrying. The quality of this thing was way too poor. Would they make him pay for it? Deciding it was best not to stick around, he turned to leave. Just then, a voice sounded from behind, asking who was making so much noise in the middle of the night. Su-hong didn't wait to find out. He bolted. Soon after, a furious caretaker rushed over and saw the ruined machine. Cursing loudly, he demanded to know which bastard had snuck onto the drill ground and smashed the tester. In his rage, he muttered that only those two troublemaking brats, Chun Shan and Li Duo, could possibly be capable of something like this. Grinding his teeth, he swore that once school started, he'd make sure to properly educate them. Star City No. 1 High School's gymnasium was packed. Students filled the place wall to wall, and Su-hong was mixed in among them. While waiting, he heard someone mention that Chun Shan had been beaten up, which immediately caught his attention. Curious, he asked what had happened. Someone nearby said they'd heard Chun Shan had smashed the combat power tester on the outdoor drill ground in the middle of the night, and then refused to admit it. Because of that, the principal had punished him on the spot. Hearing this, Su-hong felt a little awkward. Turns out someone else had taken the blame for his mess. At the same time, he couldn't help feeling relieved. If they'd actually caught him, there was no way he could have afforded to pay for that tester. Before he could dwell on it, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall, telling everyone to quiet down. He announced that they'd invited an old comrade of his, a Tier 3 martial artist named Chan Tian, to teach everyone a C-rank martial art, Thunder Rush Fist, and instructed the students to learn it properly. The gym instantly erupted. Some students shouted that it was their first time seeing a Tier 3 martial artist in person. Others exclaimed that C-rank martial arts taught at outside dojos usually cost hundreds of thousands just in tuition. But the moment Su-hong heard the name, his eyes lit up. Thunder Rush Fist. That was the same martial art White Fox had used in the underground arena. One punch producing the impact of 3. Its power was undeniable. Outside, even the registration fee to learn something like this would cost a fortune. There was no way he was letting this opportunity slip. Chun Tian didn't waste time on chatter. He told the students he would demonstrate the technique 10 times from beginning to end, and how much they learned would depend entirely on themselves. Then he stepped forward, adjusted his stance, and began. With a shout of Thunder Rush Fist, his punch shot out. The momentum was fierce and overbearing, the sound of thunder rolling through the gym. He explained as he demonstrated, at the basic level, a punch produced 1 thunderclap. At the proficient level, 3 sounds. At micro level, 5. At the mastered level, 7 sounds, which was his current realm. As he finished the demonstration, 7 consecutive thunderous sounds echoed out, leaving the air vibrating. After expending so much aura, Chun Tian paused to regulate his breathing. He then added that at the perfect realm, one could strike out 9 thunder sounds. Still, he told them not to aim too high. If they could even grasp the basics today, that alone would already be good enough. After a short pause, Chun Tian announced that he would begin the second demonstration and told everyone to try following along. The gym quickly filled with students shouting awkward battle cries as they copied his movements as best they could. Hours passed in the blink of an eye. One by one, students began to collapse from exhaustion. Some complained that they couldn't grasp it at all. Others groaned about being completely drained. A few stubborn ones kept practicing, asking if anyone had figured out the trick, even though their bodies were clearly begging for mercy. One of Su Hong's friends wiped his sweat and sighed, saying that C-rank martial arts were just too difficult to learn. As he looked around, he suddenly realized Su Hong was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, he wondered if Su Hong had somehow already learned it, but then questioned where he could have gone. Just then, excited laughter rang out nearby. Someone proudly announced that he had successfully reached the basic level. The friend turned and saw Chen Shan standing there, looking pleased with himself. A wave of jealousy washed over him. No wonder everyone called Chen Shan a genius. How exactly was his brain built? The principal quickly stepped forward, introducing Chen Shan as the school's #1 genius, and asked Chun Tian whether he was interested in guiding him further. Students immediately crowded around, showering Chun Shan with praise and calling him a true prodigy. Chun Tian, however, was unimpressed. He casually remarked that this barely counted as genius. In other cities, reaching this level was nothing more than passing. The group moved outside as their conversation continued. Chun Tian complained to the principal that this batch of students wasn't impressive at all, making the trip feel pointless. Deep down, he suspected the school had focused too much on taking in students with money rather than talent. Still, for the sake of appearances, he comforted himself by thinking that at least one student had reached the basic level, and he'd been paid well for the visit. Out loud, he simply asked whether the principal really expected to find a top-tier genius here. The principal sighed, agreeing that the path of martial cultivation was cruel and that talent was far too important. Hard work alone, without opportunity, simply wasn't enough. Just as the two were talking, a sudden sound echoed through the air. Both of them froze, then snapped their heads toward its source. 7 consecutive thunderous sounds. 7-sound thunder rush fist. Their faces changed instantly. They exclaimed in disbelief, asking how the school could possibly have someone capable of that level. The principal was even more stunned. He said it was impossible. He'd never heard of such a person in the school. Only then did the principal realize something else. He didn't even recognize that student. After all, the kid hadn't paid a single extra fee. His gaze fixed on the clothes, and his heart skipped. That uniform clearly marked him as a student. The shock hit hard. If things had gone his way, this student probably wouldn't have even qualified to attend the lesson. And yet, even Chin Tian was stunned. He muttered that he'd only taught for half a day, yet someone had already reached the mastered level. The principal's mind went blank. He asked if he'd heard wrong. 9 sounds? Was that really 9 sounds? Chin Tian couldn't even speak. He stood there in silence, emotions surging so hard he felt like crying. The principal wasn't much better off. He'd never imagined that someone without money could possess such terrifying talent. Seeing Chun Tian frozen in place, the principal asked what was wrong with him. Chun Tian finally exhaled and said he understood now. Everything suddenly made sense. Without another word, he adjusted his stance and threw out a thunder rush fist of his own. The air exploded. 8 thunderous sounds rang out. The principal nearly jumped. 8 sounds? Chun Tian had broken through? Chun Tian stared at his own fist, excitement flashing across his face. He said that seeing that thunder rush fist just now had given him the inspiration he'd been missing all these years. Without it, he might never have broken through in this lifetime. But then reality hit. This was not the time to celebrate. Chun Tian urgently told the principal to hurry and find that student. The principal snapped out of it and actually started running. Unfortunately, by the time they reached the spot, the person was already gone. As for Su Hong, he'd already achieved what he came for. While moving away, he reflected that cultivating a C-rank martial art was far more exhausting than the D-rank Vajra fist. His thunder rush fist had already reached the perfect realm. Now the next step was figuring out how to earn more martial value points and push through to become a true martial artist as soon as possible. A life and death fight like the underground arena wasn't an option every time. If he could gain martial value through normal sparring, that would be much better. Not long after, he arrived at his workplace, the Raising Thunder Dojo. This was the place. Inside, students were training as usual. When they saw him, someone asked why he'd shown up today. Su-hong casually replied that there wasn't much going on and he'd just come by to practice. Just then, a loud thud echoed across the hall. A student was sent crashing to the ground. Standing over him, another guy sneered, saying that if someone dared claim his teacher taught poorly, they should first admit their own lack of comprehension instead of making excuses. Su-hong glanced over and asked what was going on over there. Someone nearby explained that Su-hong hadn't been around much lately, so he wouldn't know what was going on. That student's teacher was a newly arrived instructor. Very strong, apparently, but he looked down on ordinary people like them and taught in a very perfunctory way. On top of that, his disciple, a guy named Lian, was also extremely strong. Right as they were talking, another student was knocked to the ground. Lian looked down at him and sneered, saying that with such a level, he actually dared to challenge him. Before things could get worse, Su-hong stepped in and grabbed Lian's wrist, telling him that was enough. Lian immediately glared at him, demanding to know who he was and telling him to let go. If he had the guts, Lian said they could settle it properly in the arena, one-on-one. Su-hong didn't back down and calmly agreed. At that moment, a voice cut in, asking what all the noise was about and announcing that class was about to start. Lian withdrew his hand and sneered that Su-hong was lucky this time. Watching him leave, Su-hong couldn't help thinking that this guy was far too arrogant. Soon after, the instructor spoke up, announcing that today was the last day he'd be teaching the Raging Sea Spear technique. As usual, he would only demonstrate it once. As he took his stance, the instructor clearly didn't believe anyone could learn it from a single demonstration. Still, Su-hong watched with intense focus. For him, once was enough. His eyes locked onto every movement as the spear swept through the air. When the demonstration ended, the instructor turned to leave, saying that how much they learned depended entirely on themselves. Complaints immediately broke out. Some students cursed the one-time demonstration as a scam. Others complained that those in the back row couldn't even see clearly. Su-hong, however, had already grasped the essence. The spear moved like a flood dragon trampling the sea, its momentum rolling forward like endless waves. Taking up a spear himself, he began to move, perfectly replicating what he'd just seen. For a moment, everyone fell silent. Then the exclamations erupted. People stared in disbelief, shouting that Su-hong had actually learned it. Others muttered that this was the first time they'd ever seen such a martial arts prodigy, while some bitterly wondered if they were simply too stupid to comprehend it. Drawn by the noise, Lian returned, asking who had supposedly learned the technique. Explained with a scoff. Then he saw Su-hong. Watching Su-hong's spear flow smoothly, Lian's eyes narrowed. It really did look like he'd grasped it. Interest sparked in his mind. Testing someone like this would be fun. Stepping forward, Lian called out to him, saying he'd give him a few pointers on his spear technique. Lian snorted and grabbed his spear, twirling it as he pointed the tip towards Su-hong, clearly telling him to come on. He repeated that he'd give him a few pointers. Su-hong simply agreed. Someone nearby hurriedly tried to stop him, warning that even though Lian's character was terrible, his strength was genuinely high, and Su-hong shouldn't act impulsively. Su-hong just smiled and told him not to worry. He stepped forward, picked up his own spear, and settled into position. Facing Lian, he politely said that he looked forward to being enlightened. That single sentence completely set Lian off. He snapped that Su-hong was being arrogant and immediately declared that he'd show him the Raging Sea Spear technique at the micro level. Su-hong remained calm. As he moved his spear, he quietly adjusted his control, deliberately suppressing it in his mind. Proficient level. He had no intention of revealing everything. He only wanted the guy in front of him to clearly understand just how ridiculous he was being. The moment Su-hong's spear moved, Lian froze. That flow, that momentum, it was unmistakable. Proficient level Raging Sea Spear technique. But no matter how hard he tried, reality refused to change. As the Raging Sea Spear technique reached the proficient level, Su-hong's movements flowed like surging tides. The moment he executed the form, the opponent froze in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A mere martial apprentice, someone who wasn't even a true martial artist yet, had actually cultivated the Raging Sea Spear technique to the proficient level. That was something even many seasoned practitioners couldn't achieve. Yet the scene in front of him was undeniably real. A system notification flashed before Su-hong's eyes. Defeated a higher level opponent. Martial value plus 35. So it really worked. Ordinary sparring could also grant martial value. That meant he didn't need to risk his life constantly. He could steadily grow stronger through proper combat. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the opponent's mind was in complete chaos. Impossible, absolutely impossible. I've trained for years, yet he reached this level in such a short time. Then what was the point of all my effort? The disbelief crushed him. Before things could escalate further, Su-hong calmly withdrew his spear and said, "That's enough." At that moment, the instructor arrived. Seeing the situation, he immediately stepped in and reprimanded the disciple. When the young man tried to protest, the instructor's expression turned cold, and he slapped him across the face without hesitation. "If you can't even face your own failure," he scolded, "what kind of martial artist do you think you are?" Many onlookers felt a strange sense of satisfaction at the sight. The disciple had always been arrogant, and seeing him humbled felt almost refreshing. Still, the instructor's gaze soon shifted to Su-hong, filled with disbelief. He had only demonstrated the technique once, yet this boy had already reached proficiency. Even the so-called geniuses of the imperial capital couldn't achieve something like that. "Your talent is frightening," the instructor said slowly. "This boy may be arrogant, but meeting someone like you is also a form of fortune for him." He then cupped his hands slightly toward Su-hong. "Little brother, my disciple's behavior reflects my failure to teach properly. Please forgive us." Su-hong was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected the man to change his attitude so quickly. This guy switches faces faster than flipping a page, he thought to himself. As he left the training grounds, fatigue finally caught up with him, but it was a satisfying kind of exhaustion. He'd gained far more than expected today. Not only had he mastered the Thunder Rush Fist and the Raging Sea Spear technique, but he'd also earned a considerable amount of martial value. Walking through the campus of Star City No. 1 High School, he quietly reviewed everything in his mind. The entrance examination was coming soon. The wealthy students were already preparing high-grade alloy weapons. If he wanted to compete, he needed one too. The feel of the spear still lingered in his hands. "I'll use a spear from now on," he decided. He needed to find himself a proper alloy spear, and fast. He realized that the little money he had wasn't even enough to cover his aunt's medical expenses, let alone buy an alloy weapon that cost nearly 70,000. Still, he refused to give up. There had to be another way. Just then, an announcement echoed through the city, saying that ferocious beasts were appearing more frequently in the wilderness, and that the city lord was recruiting martial artists to hunt them, offering generous rewards. Hearing this, Su-hong immediately understood. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Later, when he returned home, his aunt was still busy as always. She told him he shouldn't be working so hard, reminding him that he had already given them money not long ago. His uncle, however, said that as long as he could still work, he wouldn't rely on Su-hong, insisting on earning what he could himself. When Su-hong came in, they greeted him warmly. He told them to rest and let him handle things, saying that he could make money now. His uncle laughed and said that although it sounded nice, he couldn't just sit idle. He would still earn a little for daily expenses. His aunt smiled as well, saying they needed to save as much as possible so Su-hong could focus on cultivating in the future. Hearing all this, Su-hong felt a tight ache in his chest. His uncle and aunt had lived frugally for so long that unless he could truly earn enough for them to live without worry, they would never stop pushing themselves. That night, standing on the rooftop, he opened his status panel again. He knew the wilderness was dangerous, and if he wanted to go there safely, he needed more strength. He decided to invest everything he had into improving himself. As he poured his remaining martial value into vitality, a powerful sensation surged through his body. His blood roared, his muscles tightened, and his aura grew denser and more oppressive with every increase. The number continued to rise until it finally stopped at 95.2. Standing there beneath the night sky, Su-hong could feel the power coursing through him. His presence alone now carried the faint pressure of a ferocious beast ready to be unleashed. Su-hong silently noted that his vitality had reached 95.2, just one small step away from truly becoming a martial artist. 2 days later, late at night, he lay on the floor of the training hall, completely exhausted. Every part of his body ached, but his eyes were bright. His martial skills had all reached completion. Thunder Rush Fist, Raging Sea Spear, Vajra Fist, and Floating Light Palm, all perfected. He let out a long breath, thinking that he had finally done it. 2 full days of non-stop cultivation had paid off. Now it was time to move on. The next morning, he set out for the Star City Martial Artist Base. When he arrived, he couldn't help but pause in amazement. Even though he'd seen this place countless times on the news, standing here in person felt completely different. Martial artists were everywhere, filling the streets with a powerful presence. As he walked forward, his eyes swept over the large public notice board. Non-ranked ferocious beast, 300 blue star coins. Tier 1 early stage ferocious beast, 1000 blue star coins. Tier 1 mid stage, 3000 blue star coins. Tier 1 late stage, 5000 blue star coins. Reading the list, Su Hong frowned slightly. The rule beneath it stated that only the left ear of the beast would be accepted as proof. Without it, no reward would be issued. So primitive, he thought, surprised by how crude the system still was. Nearby, he noticed a man at the counter saying something like, "Miss, please help me calculate how much these are worth." The man was carrying a sack that clearly contained severed beast ears. Just then, a commotion broke out at the entrance. Someone shouted for people to move aside, saying that young Master Yi had arrived. The crowd parted instinctively. Su Hong glanced over and immediately noticed the arrogant figure striding in. Something about the man felt strangely familiar. His brows furrowed. That presence, it reminded him of someone. Around him, whispers broke out. If it weren't for his uncle being in charge here, he'd have been beaten to death long ago. I heard he got beaten up badly a few days ago. Serves him right. Really? No wonder he's been keeping such a low profile lately. Su Hong listened quietly, then looked up again, his eyes meeting the other man's for a brief moment. Recognition flickered between them. The air subtly tightened. Su Hong couldn't help but think that the real danger wasn't just the ferocious beasts out there, but people as well. He reminded himself to stay cautious no matter what. As he was heading out, someone glanced at him and commented, saying he looked young, and asked if this was his first time going into the wilderness alone. Su Hong just gave a short response and kept walking. Behind him, that person shook his head and muttered that it was another ignorant kid rushing to his death. Once inside the wilderness, Su Hong took in the surroundings. The forest was lush and quiet, almost peaceful. Still, he reminded himself not to let his guard down. He told himself he had to return with results. He couldn't afford to come back empty-handed. 2 hours passed as he moved deeper inside. He drank some water and frowned. He hadn't seen a single ferocious beast yet. It made him wonder if all the beasts near the outer area had already been cleared out. With that thought, he picked up his pace and headed deeper into the forest. Then suddenly, his expression changed. Right in front of him stood a massive figure, a ferocious beast. It was huge, its aura oppressive, and it looked exactly like the descriptions he'd seen in the books. Su Hong instantly recognized it. It was a Tier 1 early-stage ferocious beast, the Azure Moon Wolf. It stared at him with bloodshot eyes, baring its fangs as it let out a low growl. Clearly, it was hungry. As the beast tensed and prepared to pounce, Su Hong took a deep breath and steadied himself. The battle was about to begin. As the wolf lunged forward with its sharp claws, Su Hong reacted instantly. He dodged to the side and drove an electrified punch straight into its abdomen. The impact sent the beast flying, its massive body slamming into a tree with a dull crash. The wolf collapsed, barely able to move. Su Hong stood there, his fists still crackling faintly with electricity. He looked down at his trembling hands, feeling the lingering power surge through his body. He couldn't help thinking that fighting real ferocious beasts felt far more exhilarating than anything else he had experienced. Taking down a Tier 1 early-stage beast in a single blow made his blood surge with excitement. If he could handle this so easily, he wondered how he would fare against a Tier 1 mid-stage beast. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a sudden movement caught his attention. From the shadows behind him, a massive figure emerged. A low, menacing growl rolled through the forest as a huge silhouette stepped into view. It was another beast, far larger, far more dangerous. A Tier 1 mid-stage ferocious beast, a raging black bear. The bear charged, clearly believing it had found easy prey. But before it could land its attack, a blur of motion struck it head-on. A powerful, lightning-infused blow slammed into its body, sending it crashing to the ground. Su Hong stood where he was, calm and steady. It was his punch that had felled the beast. He exhaled slowly, realizing just how much his strength had grown. With his current power, as long as he didn't encounter a Tier 2 ferocious beast, he wouldn't be in much danger. That meant another reward secured, 3,000 in bounty. As that thought crossed his mind, a system notification appeared, informing him that his accumulated martial value was now sufficient to break through and become a martial artist. Su Hong's heart raced. He was finally at the threshold. But before he could celebrate, a terrifying roar echoed through the forest, far more oppressive than anything he'd felt before. The pressure alone made his skin prickle. His expression changed instantly. He turned toward the source of the sound, eyes narrowing. Whatever had made that roar was far stronger than anything he had faced so far. Curiosity and caution battled in his mind, but in the end, curiosity won. He moved carefully toward the source. Soon, He reached a massive rock formation and climbed up to get a better look. What he saw made his breath catch. A colossal figure stood below, a massive, black-scaled serpent coiled among the trees. A Tier 1 late-stage ferocious beast, a black jade python. Its body was enormous, and its aura was terrifying. Nearby, several people were already fighting it, but they were clearly losing. One by one, they were sent flying, completely overpowered. Suong stared at the scene, heart pounding. This was on an entirely different level. Suong suddenly felt a sharp sense of danger. Almost instantly, he leapt aside. And it was the right call. The massive beast struck where he had just been standing, its spiked tail slamming down with terrifying force. But the creature clearly wasn't satisfied. It hated that its prey had escaped. Suong barely had time to land before he had to leap again, narrowly avoiding another sweeping strike. Even so, the sheer speed of the attack still grazed him, sending a jolt through his body. He realized just how fast this creature truly was. As he steadied himself, he noticed someone else nearby, already badly injured and unable to move. Pushing aside his own pain, Suong grabbed the fallen person's weapon. He muttered that he'd borrow it for a moment and turned back toward the beast. The massive python reared up, jaws opening wide as it prepared to strike again. Suong barely avoided the attack, rolling away just in time. As he regained his footing, his thoughts raced. A Tier 1 late-stage ferocious beast normally required several martial artists working together to take down. Yet he had already reached the point where he could fight one head-on. He realized this was because all of his martial skills had reached the perfected state. Using his perfected void step, he darted around the battlefield, dodging the beast's attacks with blinding speed. Then he launched a counterattack, driving his spear forward with the raging sea spear technique. The blow pierced the beast's hide, drawing a furious roar from its throat. The python thrashed violently, enraged by the pain. Suong didn't relent. He struck again, his movements fluid and precise, forcing the massive creature into a frenzy. Still, he knew the truth. Its body was enormous, and landing a single decisive blow wouldn't be easy. The difference in size made it difficult to strike a fatal spot. As he maneuvered, he reminded himself to stay patient. He needed to weaken it first and wait for the right opening. Just then, the beast lashed out again, its massive body crashing toward him with overwhelming force. In response, Suong unleashed his thunderous fist, perfectly executed. The explosive force collided head-on with the beast's attack, stopping it in its tracks. The shockwave rippled through the air as both figures staggered back, the battle far from over. Suong knew that once he landed a successful strike, he couldn't afford to linger. He had to immediately pull back, widen the distance, and look for another opening. One mistake would be fatal. That was the price of facing a creature like this. He could feel his breathing growing heavier with every exchange. Fighting this way was exhausting, but it was also the safest option he had. Still, as the battle dragged on, even he could sense his stamina starting to dip. At the same time, the black jade python wasn't faring much better. Its movements were becoming sluggish, its breath rough and uneven. Suong realized that the beast was also nearing its limit. Just a little more, he thought. If I can keep this up, I can finish it. He steadied himself, preparing for the next exchange, fully focused on the beast in front of him. Then, without warning, a dangerous chill ran down his spine. Something was wrong. Before he could react, a violent force slammed into him from the side. The impact sent him flying, his body crashing hard against the ground. His breath was knocked out of him in an instant. He forced himself to roll over, barely managing to block the next blow. Even so, the impact rattled his bones. He realized too late that he'd been ambushed. Struggling to his feet, he demanded to know who it was. From the shadows, several figures stepped forward. One of them laughed loudly, clearly enjoying the situation. He mocked Suong, asking how it felt to be caught off guard, and suggested that perhaps Suong should hand over the black jade python instead. Suhong's eyes narrowed as he recognized the speaker. His heart sank slightly. Trouble had truly arrived. Suong is in a really bad situation as he gets surrounded by a lot of goons who have a history with him. The goon leader says that when he saw Suong daring to leave the city alone back then, he thought Suong would definitely die outside the city. He says he didn't expect Suhong's luck to be this good. Not only did he not die, but he even scavenged a heavily injured black jade giant python. Then he takes a look at the nearby giant python, which is also badly injured and close to dying, and he feels like this is such a nice opportunity for him. Suong thinks that the man said he picked up the black jade giant python, so that must mean they just arrived. He notices that all 5 of them are martial artists and that they have the numbers advantage, so he knows he can't fight them head-on. But suddenly, one of the enemies rushes toward him with his fist ready to punch, shouting that Su Hong didn't hear young Master Yi, and that young Master Yi wants this giant python, asking why Su Hong hasn't scrammed yet. Seeing all of this, Su Hong gets really angry and channels a lot of aura into his hand. He says that being repelled just now was only because of a sneak attack and asks if they really thought he couldn't beat them. Then Su Hong throws a punch straight at the enemy, and their fists collide, releasing a powerful surge of energy everywhere. The enemy is shocked by the sudden attack and thinks about how terrifying Su Hong's power is. But Su Hong doesn't stop there and punches the enemy straight in the face, sending him flying in front of all the other goons. The leader then says that it's a powerful Vajra fist and that it really is him, Minotaur. The goon leader is extremely impressed by this display. However, Su Hong recognizes him as White Fox. White Fox says that in front of so many people, Su Hong brought him great humiliation and that Su Hong is the first to ever do that. White Fox is furious and never wanted something like this to happen to him, so he immediately orders all his goons to take Su Hong down. They all rush forward with their weapons towards Su Hong, who quickly grabs his spear and runs into the wild. The leader of the goons, White Fox, doesn't want him to escape, so he immediately orders everyone to chase him, and all the other goons follow after him. They search around the wilderness, looking through possible hiding spots where he could be. However, one of them says they can't find him and asks where he is. Another one says that the woods ahead are dense and it's easy to get ambushed, telling everyone to be careful. However, one of them isn't that afraid. He says they have so many people and asks if they're really supposed to be afraid of just one guy. But suddenly, someone flashes behind him at an insanely high speed. He immediately looks back, and it's none other than Su Hong. Su Hong takes him down with a powerful fist and sends him flying right in front of his leader. This guy is clearly out for the count. After seeing this, the leader wonders how Su Hong can be so fast. White Fox can't believe what's happening, and after witnessing such intensity, everyone else quickly forms a circle. None of them want to be the next one to take that terrifying punch. One of them says it's the Thunder Rush Fist, the 9 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. Another says that even Tier 3 martial artists can't train the Thunder Rush Fist to the perfect realm. White Fox gets even more frustrated and tells them to shut up, thinking to himself that perfect Vajra Fist and perfect Thunder Rush Fist shouldn't be possible. He is already terrified. However, he would be even more terrified if he knew that Su Hong is hiding in a tree, watching all of them. To Su Hong, they look like little rats running around while a cat hunts them. Su Hong thinks that if he hadn't just finished grappling with the giant python and consumed too much vitality, he could have crushed them head-on. He then throws his spear, thinking that for now he can only look for opportunities to defeat them one by one. The spear lands nearby, scaring all of them. The goons are shocked, and as they look toward the spear, Su Hong suddenly grabs one of them and attacks. After the instant strike, he disappears back into hiding. The remaining goons are now completely terrified. It feels like even if they stick together, there's no way they can survive against him. This guy is far too intense and powerful. The remaining goons say to young Master Yi that the kid is too strong and that they should leave quickly. However, the leader can't accept this. He doesn't want to run and wants to show his power instead. Even though he's scared inside, he pretends not to care. White Fox says that running is a joke and that he must kill Su Hong today. However, Su Hong is rushing all around them at an extremely fast speed. They can't do anything and can barely even see him. Then suddenly, while they are talking, Su Hong rushes past them. As the leader of the goons, White Fox starts to say something about this guy, but another goon gets grabbed instantly and slammed straight into the ground. Su Hong then rushes back into hiding. After seeing this, White Fox's fear and frustration keep increasing as he thinks that only a few days have passed, yet this kid has become so much stronger and that it feels unreal. Then Su Hong rushes past just behind him. White Fox immediately turns back but sees nothing there. He curses and says there's no way Su Hong could grab him. But the moment he turns again, Su Hong appears behind him, thinking that it's finally his turn. White Fox reacts instantly, turns again, and says not to think he's been beaten. As he gathers his magic aura, he strikes and says it's the void-breaking finger. Su Hong immediately dodges and moves ahead. The tree behind him isn't so lucky, though, as the force of White Fox's attack is immense and the tree gets completely destroyed. White Fox doesn't stop there. Seeing that Su Hong keeps dodging, he attacks again and again with beam attacks, repeatedly shouting void-breaking finger. But no matter how many times he attacks, Su Hong is simply too fast and dodges every single one. While hiding and dodging, Su Hong thinks that this power is incredible and that the grade of this martial skill definitely isn't low, wondering if it could be B rank. He even finds it a bit interesting and feels like he might want to add something like this to his own skills someday. However, the guy in front of him, whose finger is glowing with blue aura, is far from calm. He's extremely frustrated and thinks that the stinky brat has already etched his face into his memory, and that if Su Hong dares to hurt him, once he gets back, he will wipe out Su Hong's entire family. The moment Su Hong hears those words, they echo loudly in his head, and he becomes extremely furious. The words about taking down his whole family are completely unacceptable to him. He thinks about it again in disbelief and then rushes straight toward White Fox in a swift dodging motion. However, White Fox starts talking about his background, saying that his uncle is the supervisor of the martial artist base and that his father is someone important too. Before he can finish, Su Hong is already right behind him, his powerful aura pressing down hard. This time, Su Hong doesn't say anything at first. He just wants to show his power. As his fist gathers terrifying strength, Su Hong finally speaks and says that he preferred the way White Fox looked before, acting high and mighty. He says this kind of lowliness doesn't suit him, but he's still going to enjoy this. Then he punches White Fox straight in the face, sending him flying far away. This time, the power is overwhelming. The blow sends him deep into the forest, straight through it, and finally crashing into the ground. Smoke fills the air. When it finally settles, Su Hong walks toward him with a furious expression and a red aura surrounding his body. He says that White Fox should never have used his family to threaten him. Lying on the ground and badly injured, White Fox asks why Su Hong is so strong and says this is impossible, insisting that Su Hong clearly isn't even a martial artist. He shouts, asking what Su Hong really is. Behind him, the giant python hears his voice and locks its gaze onto him. White Fox suddenly senses that something is wrong. When he looks back, the python swings its tail and attacks, opening its massive jaws wide as it strikes. Once White Fox is taken down, the python shifts its full attention toward Su Hong. Su Hong realizes that he fought the goons for too long and that the giant python has recovered its stamina. Now it's ready for another round, and this time it has the advantage. After all the constant fighting, Su Hong no longer feels as confident as he did before. Everyone is extremely frustrated after getting beaten up so badly. One of them curses and says that the kid is way too weird. Another asks where young Master Yi is and wonders if he finished that kid off. Suddenly, they notice the same guy who defeated them rushing straight toward them again. They immediately brace themselves for another fight. One of them shouts that the brat finally came out, while another says he won't spare him this time. But Su Hong isn't interested in fighting them at all. He keeps moving forward and calmly tells them to get out of his way. A second later, they understand why he's running so fast. Right behind him is the giant python, and it looks extremely angry. At that moment, none of them can say a single word. The python immediately attacks Su Hong, but Su Hong jumps aside with his spear in hand and dodges the strike. One of the foolish kids doesn't react in time, and the python catches him instead. A notification appears, saying that an opponent martial artist was indirectly taken down and 30 martial value was gained. The python then attacks another one who also fails to escape in time. Another notification appears, again saying that an opponent martial artist was indirectly taken down and 30 martial value was gained. Su Hong is a little surprised by this and thinks that he didn't expect to gain martial value in this way as well. However, the python is already attacking him again. Su Hong jumps up once more to dodge the sweeping tail. The python is quite clever and starts using its entire body to try to catch anyone off guard. Even so, Su Hong keeps dodging and moving without stopping. As he fights and runs, Su Hong realizes that after so many battles, his martial value is already enough for him to break through and become a martial artist. He moves rapidly through the trees, which only frustrates the python further. No matter how hard it tries, it just can't catch him. While running, Su Hong keeps thinking that it would be perfect if he could find a safe place to break through. Then, as he moves forward, he suddenly spots something ahead, a small cave. It's exactly the kind of place he was hoping for, somewhere he could stay safe from the python's attacks and focus on increasing his own power. As he spots the cave, he says it's perfect and immediately heads toward it. The python is still right behind him, and just as it's about to strike again, Su Hong jumps straight into the cave. The python follows and tries to force its way in, but its massive body gets stuck at the entrance. All it can do now is roar in frustration while Su Hong calmly looks at his system. He checks his stats and sees his name, Su Hong, with vitality at 96, spirit at 23, physique listed as mortal body at 3%, and his martial skills all at the perfect level, including Raging Sea Spear Technique, Thunder Rush Fist, Vajra Fist, Floating Light Palm, and Void Step. His martial value is at 504. He immediately starts tapping the system non-stop, telling himself to go faster and faster. He wants to gain as much power as possible in the shortest time. He focuses on vitality, tapping again and again, feeling it surge through his body. He thinks that his whole body feels burning hot, like magma is flowing through his veins instead of blood. Soon, his vitality reaches 100. Even the python seems to sense that something terrifying is happening. At that moment, a notification appears saying he has broken through to Tier 1 martial artist. Su-hong thinks that he has finally become a real martial artist. He clenches his fist as aura surges through his body, looks at the python, and says that now it's his turn. The python feels genuine fear and tries to pull back, wanting to escape. But Su-hong doesn't give it the chance. He gathers his strength and throws an extremely powerful punch. The python, trapped in the cave, can't escape in time. The punch slams into it, and all it can do is roar as it's sent flying through the air. Can't believe how strong Su-hong has become in such a short time. But Su-hong isn't done yet. He forms another fist and launches another Vajra fist attack, jumping onto the python's tail and using it as a foothold. He pounds it into the ground with continuous punches. Smoke fills the area, and when the dust finally settles, Su-hong is standing triumphantly on top of the giant python. His martial value increases by another 92, and Su-hong says that even though the giant python was already heavily injured, he can now face its attacks head-on. Then, as he sits there, he wonders about the reward and says that hunting ferocious beasts usually requires cutting off the left ear to exchange for money, but snakes don't have ears, so he doesn't know what to do. After thinking for a moment, he decides to forget about it and just hurry back. As he starts moving away, the forest is now completely quiet. Only traces of destruction remain, and all the chaos from earlier is gone. Su-hong keeps moving forward and looks at the idiots who tried to gang up on him and ended up like this. He says that they got off easy. While walking, he thinks about whether he can find that high-level martial technique the other guy used. Soon, he notices something and says it's the void-breaking finger. He comments that this is really interesting. He decides to stay near the cave for a while, lighting a fire and sitting beside the python's body. He starts studying the technique and says that he has already memorized the entire introductory cultivation method for void-breaking finger. Next, he plans to use the system to master it quickly. As he continues practicing, a clone soon appears for him to fight. The clone immediately uses void-breaking finger again and again. While battling it, Su-hong's mastery increases rapidly, reaching 51%, then 63%, 77%, and 93%. Soon after, void-breaking finger enters the basic realm and starts charging from 1%. However, Su-hong is clearly exhausted. He keeps coughing and says that, as expected of a B-rank martial skill, even learning it to the basic realm puts tremendous pressure on his body. The technique's guidance tells him to go find a monster to test its power. 3 days later, Su-hong faces a massive roaring monster, a huge bear. Using void-breaking finger, he fights it head-on and eventually takes it down. After the battle, Su-hong says that he has finally reached the perfect realm. He adds that this power is truly worthy of a B-rank martial skill. A notification appears, stating that void-breaking finger has been mastered and reached the perfect level. Su-hong then says it's time to go back. At the martial artist base, a large crowd has gathered. One person exclaims in shock at a total of 230,000. Another says that the Thunder Squad is incredibly fierce for killing so many ferocious beasts. Someone else says that this single harvest matches several months of hard work. Yet another comments that it's amazing there isn't a single non-ranked ferocious beast, that all of them are Tier 1, and that there are even a few high-stage ones. Then the receptionist looks up in shock and announces the results, saying there are 72 Tier 1 initial stage ferocious beasts, 83 middle stage ones, 17 high stage ones, and a total reward of 406,000 blue star coins. Su-hong thinks that he might have taken down too many and that it's far too conspicuous. He feels that if he had known, he should have hunted fewer beasts. He can only hope this doesn't bring too much trouble his way. Everyone around completely loses their minds, going crazy over the numbers. Suddenly, people begin moving forward as Su-hong walks ahead. Some start shouting that the base has been attacked and wonder how that's even possible when there are so many high-level martial artists stationed there. The loud commotion soon reveals someone's arrival. First, a pair of hands comes into view, and then the person fully appears. It's Yi Qi, the person in charge of the base and Yi Feng's uncle. He orders everyone to blockade the base immediately and not let even a single fly escape. Others respond at once, saying they understand and will do it right away. Soon after, another supervisor arrives and asks what happened. Yi Qi answers that his nephew Yi Feng and the 4 martial artists with him are all dead. The crowd is stunned. Someone whispers in disbelief that Yi Feng was actually taken down and that an entire group of 5 was wiped out. Another person quietly says it was a good kill and that everyone there has been robbed by Yi Feng at some point. Someone else adds in a low voice that if not for Yi Feng's background, he would have been dealt with long ago. Another mutters that the coward has finally been taken down. Yi Qi then announces that a B-rank martial skill on Yi Feng's body is missing and orders that all martial artists be searched. He says no one is allowed to leave until all suspicions are cleared. Su Hong thinks that judging from the bodies, it's obvious they were killed by the giant python, so it shouldn't be traced back to him. But as the search continues and more people are checked, he starts to feel uneasy. He wonders if they might actually be targeting him, especially when he notices people glancing at him and whispering among themselves. Suddenly, Yi Qi walks straight towards Su Hong with his men. He speaks politely on the surface, saying he heard Su Hong killed ferocious beasts worth over 400,000 all by himself and praising his impressive skills. However, despite the calm words, the red aura surrounding Yi Qi makes it clear that he's in a very bad mood. It feels like he might have already sensed something. Su Hong remains calm on the outside, though. He knows he's much stronger now, and in his heart, he even wonders if he could take this man down if things truly turn bad. The father of that moron speaks up and says that he heard Su Hong took down ferocious beasts worth 400,000 credits all by himself and calls it pretty impressive. However, the woman beside him immediately questions it. She says Su Hong looks like nothing more than a rank 1 early stage at best and asks how he could possibly kill that many beasts. She accuses him of scavenging young master Ye's pack and orders them to search him immediately. The moment she says this, 2 bulky men with fire gathering in their hands start walking towards Su Hong. One of them warns him not to resist, or things will get ugly. In the next instant, though, one of them suddenly feels a spear pointed straight at his head. He asks what Su Hong thinks he's doing. Su Hong calmly says it's nothing and keeps the spear steady. The man is shocked and realizes he couldn't even track how fast Su Hong drew that spear. Su Hong then states that he is a student of Star City High No. 1 and asks if they really want to search him. Hearing this, the man's father hesitates. He thinks about how the principal of No. 1 is famously protective of his students and not someone to offend lightly. At the same time, Su Hong is still highly suspicious. If the kid truly hunted all those beasts, then he's a genius. But if they're wrong and offend him, it won't be worth the trouble. He places a hand on one of the men, signals them to stop, and steps forward. He explains that his nephew was attacked and their family's secret technique was stolen, so he must find the culprit. He says he hopes Su Hong will cooperate. Su Hong responds that he only hopes they aren't accusing the wrong person. The man then offers 10,000 credits as compensation for the search and asks if that's acceptable. Su Hong counters with 30,000, thinking to himself that Yi Feng was killed by the giant python and that as long as they don't find the technique, they can't pin anything on him. The man agrees and accepts the deal. Su Hong opens his arms and allows the search. As they check him, the woman goes through his bag. During the process, Su Hong tells them to search carefully because he doesn't want any false accusations hanging over him. When the search is finished, the men report that there's nothing there. The man nods and orders them to give Su Hong the 30,000 credits and let him go. Su Hong thinks to himself that it's a good thing he cleaned everything up or he would have been in serious trouble today. The man then turns to the others and tells them to keep searching, saying that no one is allowed to leave until all suspicions are cleared. As Su Hong walks away, he thinks about his next steps. He plans to go shower and change, then head to the Martial Artist Association to register for the assessment. He knows he needs to get his hands on a guidance technique as soon as possible. Then, at the Martial Artist Base's underground hotel, Su Hong checks his system and says that he has 534 martial points and didn't expect it to be that much. He says he's been so focused on training the world-shattering finger and hunting beasts these past few days that he never got the chance to use them. The status shows his name is Su Hong, Vitality at 103+, Spirit at 23+, Physique at Mortal Frame 6%+, and martial arts including Void Shattering Finger, Raging Sea Spear Technique, Thunderclap Fist, Vajra Fist, Floating Light Palm, and Void Step, all at perfection. His martial points stand at 534. Looking at everything, Su Hong thinks that rank 1 early stage requires 100 vitality, while rank 1 mid stage needs 200 vitality. He calculates that if he dumps all his martial points into vitality, he can increase it by 53.4, leaving him only about 40 points short of mid stage. But he also realizes he hasn't upgraded Spirit or Mortal Frame yet and wonders what effects they might have. He looks again and notes that his Spirit is 23 and his Mortal Frame is is at 6%. He thinks that he has plenty of martial points anyway, so he might as well see what happens. He starts upgrading his spirit, watching it rise by 0.1 again and again. After the upgrade, he says he doesn't really feel any different after raising his spirit. Next, he begins increasing his mortal frame by 0.1 repeatedly. This time, he immediately feels the change and says the strength increase is obvious, deciding to add some more. Soon, his martial points drop to 0. He then says that's enough for mortal frame and decides to put 200 martial points into vitality. After doing that, his physique shows mortal frame at 36.1%. He then says he'll dump the rest into spirit. As he does, a huge surge of red aura erupts around him, and he says it feels like he has an endless supply of power welling up inside. After a while, his body gradually returns to normal. He lets out a breath and says he's glad he's back to normal because he wouldn't know how to explain it to people if he stayed stuck in that muscle-bound form. 1 hour later, at the Star City Martial Artist Association, a large complex surrounded by many tall buildings, Su-hong arrives and says he's there for the martial artist assessment. At the reception, the woman tells him that's fine and says a staff member will take him there shortly. Then, as a staff member leads him along, the staff member says that Su-hong is quite young and asks if this is his first time taking the assessment. He explains that to pass as a rank 1 martial artist, vitality needs to be at least 100 and combat power has to be over 1,000, and then wishes him good luck. Su-hong thanks him. Nearby, a few people start commenting quietly. One says that the kid came alone and doesn't even have a master with him. Another says he's probably just here to test the waters because of his age. Suddenly, Su-hong notices the crowd getting noisy. People are clamoring as a voice announces that Panjia has vitality 102 and combat power 992, and that he failed the assessment. The guy curses and says he was so close. Su-hong and the staff member enter the assessment area. A moment later, another announcement says that Li Ming has vitality 105 and passed, and that he will proceed to the combat power test. Li Ming is taken to a punching machine and throws a powerful punch. When the number shows 1763, he passes immediately. Someone comments that a combat power of 1763 is almost at the level of a rank 1 mid-stage martial artist. Another person asks if Jiang Ming from Raging Thunder has a disciple named Li Ming. Someone else realizes that Li Ming is Jiang Ming's disciple and says it's no wonder he's such a genius, especially since he was using Thunderclap Fist. Su-hong hears this and thinks that he thought Jiang Ming's disciple was Li Yan, wondering just how many disciples that man has. Soon after, a staff member comes over and tells Su-hong that he's next. As Su-hong steps forward for the examination, the guy before him thinks to himself that he's taking the assessment at this age because he's a genius. He admits that Su-hong is rare for being the same age, but still wonders how Su-hong could possibly compare to him. Suddenly, the crowd erupts in shock. People start shouting in disbelief, with some asking if the vitality tester is broken and how someone's vitality could be that high. The arrogant guy turns back in shock as the staff announces that Su-hong's vitality is 123 and that he has passed. The man mutters that it's impossible. He quickly tries to calm himself down, thinking that high vitality doesn't mean everything and that combat power is what truly matters. He still hopes that, at the very least, he can be number 1 here. Then the staff officer announces that the combat power test is beginning, and Su-hong is led to the punching machine. As Su-hong prepares to punch, he thinks that he has already advanced to a martial artist and upgraded his physique, so his strength has increased massively. He thinks that using 40% of his power should be enough for the test, but then worries that if he goes too easy, he might fail the combat power requirement. To be safe, he decides to use 50% instead. He throws the punch with terrifying force. Even at 50%, the pressure is overwhelming. The machine is sent flying straight into the wall ahead and shatters on impact. The destruction is insane, and everyone watching is completely stunned. No one can believe what they're seeing. One person thinks that he sent the tester flying with a single punch, and that kind of power is terrifying. Another wave of clamoring breaks out, even louder than before. Someone else realizes that Su-hong didn't even use any martial arts just now. Then a voice says that the standard combat power for a rank 1 high-stage martial artist is only 3,000, and that this result is simply unimaginable. Another person exclaims to a teacher that it's that kid again and calls him an absolute monster. The teacher responds that this explains everything. Later, inside an office, a woman is shown. She is Wu Lingxian, the president of the Star City Martial Arts Association. She complains that the neighboring Yong City branch has produced another genius and brags about it every day. She wonders what they're so proud of and complains that if Star City doesn't produce a few geniuses soon, she's going to lose her job. Suddenly, a man rushes into her office shouting that a monster has appeared in the martial artist assessment. Because he's yelling so loudly, Wu Lingxian turns around and glares at him, clearly startled. The man quickly explains that it's a rank 1 early-stage martial artist who sent the tester flying using nothing but raw physical strength, and that his combat power reached 3,000. Even Wu Lingxian finds it hard to believe. Still, she realizes that this might be exactly what she needs right now. What's going to happen next? If you don't want to miss it out, subscribe right now and turn on all the notifications.